districts. Please also include any kind of questions you have, because the way we're going to structure this meeting today is I'm going to give you a context for the reason why the board had voted on January 22nd to present the dues increase to the membership during our convention. But we afterwards are going to be addressing the questions that are in the chat. And following that, we're going to have an open mic if we have enough time. And our meeting will end at 8 o'clock tonight. So my name is Alessia Malloy. I am your VIP of program. And with me today is Jim.
I am Jim Scalina. I'm currently your Illinois PTA treasurer.
And so tonight we're going to talk about, basically give you the context and reason why we are proposing this dues increase during our convention. We're not going to look at the budget or any other detailed information, but I'm going to switch over here really quick. All of that could be found on our website. And if you click on this menu here, the business items, these are the items that you're going to be voting on if you're going to be attending the convention this year. The proposed budget will also include the items that would potentially be funded if we have your votes to actually go through this dues increase. And back here.
I've put a link to that in the chat if you guys want to use that to get there.
And you're welcome to open up and look at any of the files while I talk. I will be talking for 10 to 20 minutes, and then the remainder of the meeting is going to be us addressing the questions that we're going to first address the questions in the chat, and following that, we're going to have an open mic session. So we have had our last dues increase in 2017. It was 5 years, and a lot has happened in those 5 years. The costs have gone up, and the revenues have decreased. And we have this year, when sat down to set out a budget, found that there was a deficit of $17,000. So this quote right here, I agree with every point that's being made except for one. So yes, this dues increase is going to impact every PTA in the state. And we have not had a normal year since 2018, 2019. And membership is still very negatively impacted. That is absolutely true. Yet, I don't agree with the statement that this could not come at a worse time. I think this is just the right time to do it. Because if you see this chart here in front of you, it's representation of your organization. So Illinois PTA is made up of all the units that you see in front of yourself. And what's happening right now, we have half of our units have not paid their dues for this year. And 2/3 of our units are struggling to pay and keep their membership. But then you also have a third units that are thriving. They're doing quite well. And they are also part of your organization. And what's more, this is your organization, but National PTA is your organization. And it was found by women to do activist work, to do what you guys do now, but they decided to do it 22 years before the votes were even allowed for the women. And now the organization is 125 years old, and it has accomplished so much. So today, as we are talking about Illinois PTA and proposed dues increase, I would like for you to think 10, 20, 30 years ahead of time and see where your unit, your local unit, your state unit, and your national organization are going to be. So just take yourself, make that leap. And then before we go forward, we have to take a quick look back. And this information is basically came from our accountant, and they have given us the record of the last 4 years. And you could see that the majority of our revenue for the state level comes from dues. Last year is an exception. Most of our support came from the PPP loans that basically made us solvable for 1 year, and they're not coming back. So we really can't expect that kind of external support. So we really have to have our dues revenue coming in. I was surprised when I first joined PTA at the state level that the state PTA doesn't really have any other sources of revenue. And at my local, we use membership literally just to pay dues, and then we had separate fundraisers. So we had like 440-25 for individual members, 820, 850 for family. But our expenses are 200, and so at the end of the day, we pretty much are in the loss as it stands right now. Primarily reason because, like the statement said, we're losing our membership. So in 2019, we had 66,000 members, but by 2020, we had 27,000 members. And so to help with trying to bring up our membership back, we have rolled out a membership recognition program this year. It's called Reach for the Stars. But in addition to having this recognition program for membership, we as a board met on January 22nd, and we as a board voted to adopt presented proposed dues increase at the convention to our delegates. And so what we recommend is to bring up our dues to the baseline of our neighbors to $3, which makes it a 75-cent increase, or just 3 cents per 3 quarters per member. And so we're already seeing the positive results of Reach for the Stars. But if we couple it with the dues increase, we could really make a significant change for your organization, which is your local unit and your PTA, that is Illinois, PTA, well, and national too. So skip this. So we really want you to know 3 major things that we looked at as we were making a decision. The first one is the Illinois PTA space and then office. We looked at these 2 closely because those are the 75% of our expenses are the space and the staff. We have 2 full-time staffers. It's Jolene and Ashton. And Jolene and Ashton are our underpaid and overworked guardians. They are there. We have an extraordinary record where they have been with us together for more than 20 years.
Yeah, Jolene's been there for 21 years.
That's incredible, right?
Yes.
And actually, Jim, I had the story. Basically, the reason why I think Jolene is irreplaceable. When I joined PTA, my unit was not in good standing. I had to do a lot of getting things in order. And when I got a hold of Jolene, she was patient. She walked me through every step of the way. And that's the value that you have when you have somebody with in an organization like ours, where we have not enough volunteers and a very high turnover. You need something to have continuity, and that's what the office staff provides. Jim, can you tell?
I have a very, I have a very similar story to that too. 15 years ago or so, when I first got that letter from the IRS that said something's wrong, I called the office. Someone who I now know was Jolene walked me through the process and told me what steps to do to get back in good standing and file the right paperwork, not only with the IRS, but with the state. And without those 2 people in the office, I think every single one of our units would be floundering from year to year. And, as we can go into later, even getting rid of our office space would not save us a significant amount of money.
Yeah, we looked at the rent option, and we looked at what it costs for us to close and to move our staff to remote, because we have to have storage expenses, because there's some documents that have a special storage requirements. Basically, at the end of the day, we would be saving maybe $1,200, and it's just not, the benefits of going through that process are not significant enough to really be justified.
Yeah, if we ended up, sorry, if we ended up closing the office, we would actually increase some other expenses for, you know, data lines and storage space and things like that. So in the end, that option, the board decided to not consider that.
Correct. And then during our board meeting, we did have a board member bring up the PPP loans, asking if there were any other sources of national funding. Well, we're a membership organization, and so by design, we were meant to function on our dues that our members pay. Everybody was in a tough situation this past 2 years, and we're very grateful for the PPP loans, and it was really nice to have, but they're not coming back. So we can't expect funding from any other sources. So, and now,
yeah, sorry, I just wanted to chime in and say we certainly can't count on things and put all our eggs in one basket to hope that there's going to be some other round of loans or some magical massive increase in membership that's going to make us whole again.
That's true. And so another question that was brought up during our discussion on January 22nd, as we're making this decision as a board, we had members ask, why don't we use the endowment fund? You will see that when one of the files on the website and under the business, you'll see our balance report, and you will see it. There is $200,000 in our non-restricted assets. Well, when we had looked into it, the structure of these endowments, basically there's two parts to them. There is a principal that is not to be touched, that is just an investment body, and then there's an investment income, and that's the part that we could actually spend on our PTAs. If we were to take out the investment income, right now, it would, after all the fees and all the changes, it would end up being $3,000. It would cover some of the gaps, but not all. But the real cost of it is basically, as your board, we have a fiduciary duty, and we have a fiduciary duty to all of the members. And I want to say we not only have fiduciary duty to present members, but I actually want to be on the lookout for those who are going to be in these positions 2 years from now. So 2 years from now, they will not have the funds from endowments. They will not have the excitement from coming out from the lockdown, because that's a big factor right now. The parents who had missed 3 years of important milestones are coming out, and they will want to be engaged. So if we, instead of using the momentum from current situation, try to stop ourselves and be conservative, we're going to miss out on some significant opportunities. Instead, we, as a board, recommend that we make the investment and we invest in our leaders. Because when we did the analysis really about what's going on, looking at the trends of our membership, what's been missing is field work. We've been missing real connections in the field. We've lost all of our we have lost many of our region directors. We recently just gained 2, which is an awesome, I'm quite excited for this, but in reality, we have not had region directors in most of our areas. We don't have consuls in most of our areas, and many of the PTAs really don't know who's out there to help them and how to connect with them. But at the same time, we do have many leaders in our local units. So in my experience this year as your VIP of programs, I've been in touch with many people who have applied to the national grants, and they're doing some really, really great things in their local units. But we want to take it further. We want to recognize them. We want to connect them we really want to make it real, what I showed you on the picture, that your unit, your organization is not restrained to just the campus of your one school or your one district. You're much bigger than that. And when you're making decisions, you're making decisions for large group of people, and the people of the future too, not just the ones who are in this next year, but the year after that and after that. So really, if we act conservatively this year, we're gonna have to make this decision the following year or 2 years later, but we're not gonna have the same conditions that we have right now. And so we received this information from one of our members, and we imagine that many of you in attendance today are here because you are, well, I suspect most of you are here tonight to oppose the dues increase. And so we're going to address the questions that are in the chat first, and then we're going to have an open mic discussion. Just one more time, I would like to let you know that the decision, the increases are going to happen if the delegates vote on March 29th. That will happen on July 1st, which means now is a good time to review any documentation that mentions the dues amount, just so that you are kind of geared up for upcoming events. And then once again, the deadline for registration is March 15th for any of the delegates. So now we're gonna start with the chat questions if we have any. Jim,
I think we had two questions that were sort of along the same lines regarding why don't we focus on increasing membership, and I guess the short and very simple answer to that is we can't count on that to make us to make us solvent. We can't hope and pray and wish that we're magically going to get triple the amount of members this year or next year. You know, it's my responsibility as treasurer to make sure that we remain solvent and that, you know, Illinois PTA continues on beyond my unit and beyond this year. So simply saying that we should increase membership, that's a great question, but it's not what we can focus on right now. Right now, what we're focused on is the budget.
Well, I actually disagree, and I'm going to say why. We are very much focused on increasing our membership. The program that has been piloted and rolled out this year is doing really, really well. We have 16 units, I believe, in the state that are already platinum. We have many bronze, many gold, many silver levels, and I hope to get more. We are doing a pilot right now in the northern region where we have mentors coming out and streamlining some operations for units, and they are also going to be talking about the membership. So that is definitely a focus, and we are doing what we can with it. But I don't know if you've heard of this expression, it's been overused at this point, but you know, instead of pulling bodies out of the water, you want to go upstream and you want to find out why they're falling into the water. So increasing dues is going upstream, and increasing membership is kind of going downstream. It's like, of course, it's the thing to do, but we should do both ends.
Yeah, that was the main first two questions about membership. And I guess what I was saying is my focus as treasurer is not necessarily on membership. That's what I meant to make it sound like. We had another question about the one about national dues increases. If we raise our state dues now, what is the state going to do when national asks for a dues increase? I'm sure we all know this will be coming. Well, you know, we're one of 50 states. If I can try to answer this one, we only have our votes and our delegates at the national convention. We could oppose or support that national dues increase when that time comes, but that's not going to change the financial situation of our state and the budget that we're talking about tonight. I'm going forward to try and find another question.
Actually, Martha, that is your question is what I was trying to get at when I explained that you are part of this large organization. And if you look at the chart, you'll find that pretty much half of our units are struggling. Then 2/3 aren't doing great, and then there is ones that are doing good. If we increase the dues, we increase the revenue. And our intention to use all of that revenue, the increase of that revenue, the point of it is to support the units that are struggling. We want to come out, we want to create the opportunities, because the hardest part about the PTA, honestly, is not the funding. It's the volunteers and it's the leadership. And with the dues increase, we're going to be able to address that issue, and we could really make a big difference.
And that kind of leads into the next question. It's not so much a question, it's sort of a couple of statements strung together. There's been no train the trainers course in Illinois offered since 2017. Therefore, the pool of available trainers has been on a continual decline. Illinois PTA has been asked to minimally offer this training course for years. What is the problem? I think that I can answer that question, because currently right now the problem is exactly what Alyssa said. It's not necessarily money, it's volunteers, and it's people committed to filling that position. Right now, I'm not only your state treasurer, I'm actually also acting as the leadership development chair. That is certainly something, Dr. Palmer, that we definitely want to do, and we want to get more trainers out there, and we want to get more people coming to training virtually and in person. The in-person ones would depend on certain things in this budget, the proposed budget happening. But yeah, that's a great, I'd love to be doing that. Right now I'm doing 2 jobs. I'm happy to say that we actually have a candidate that put in for a position to be the leadership development chair. And I think she's going to be fantastic. I'm really looking forward to the convention when hopefully she gets elected.
I just want to expand on what you said, right? So we have not had in-person trainings, and we're not trained the trainers. That is absolutely something that we have when we say we want to invest in our leaders. That's why we identified that to be as one of the buckets where the money is going to go. But while we haven't had in person, and a lot of events were not in person for the last 2 years, to be fair, we've had an incredible series of trainings taking place online. And Jim is probably the person who gets a ton of credit. Kristen Kramer gets a lot of credit for that. When the school year started, Jeanette gets a ton of credit for that too. When the school year started, we had a series that was in July. It had all the courses that PTA leaders needed to be trained. Right after the convention, we have a series of classes are happening. We have Let's Talk Thursday events where you could come in and you could learn on different subjects. And we've been partnering with the National PTA in many ways, promoting their events for education. So again, remember, we're not a small PTO that is tied back to just our cash flow. We're large. We're part of a big organization. So tapping into all those resources is more helpful, I think, way to think, as opposed to just preserving our own small units.
I'm taking one more scroll through the questions in the chat just to make sure that we've answered them all. And then I think we can move on to some live questions. Yeah, I think we've covered everything in the chat. I'm just getting to the end.
All right, so I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to put up the squares so we could see each other.